This is more evidence of why I view The Ranger's Leap of Faith, simply by how it was executed, to be forgettable, irrelevant, and wasteful, despite how important it should have been, as it is the turning point by which the last stretch of the show hinges on. For as shown, Corone is back to being Astronema. It's against her will, sure, but we never see a significant contrast between the two aside from her being, well, a bit meek for one episode. We've seen her cold and calculating enough, infrequent as it was, that her new cybernetics switching her to that full time is not that much of a stretch, though the emotionless delivery no less concerning, nor her more ruthless tactics out of character. If there was more of an impact to her changing of sides in the episode where she does, we would be properly outraged, in a good way in that it's in the context of the show and not the production staff, and more invested in Andros' now continuing quest to save Corone. We are, but nowhere near as much as we should be. Nor is there any sign she's fighting the programming through her actions, as we weren't allowed a true contrast between her good and evil selves, which that defiant turn could have really helped to establish. Hell, Ecliptor gets that, and that his loyalty to Astronema is still stronger than that to Dark Spectre and the Alliance of Evil. And he's a freaking robot where his entire personality can be reprogrammed on a whim, and just was. Part 1 of this little two-parter should really have had more focus on Corone, or at least its events from her perspective, to countenance the failings in showcasing her switch in loyalties. And they had the time. The padding showcases that. Even having a scene showing she doesn't know what to do to help would have done wonders, leading more into her decision that leads, well, to becoming a prisoner in her own body. If you skipped a few episodes, and did not have the at times annoying and superfluous previously on narration, you would not known of the event and it would not have mattered, when it should have. Because this is how you make a villain that you want to see turn good. Make them question their allegiance and reasons for being on the side that they are on and what they have done. Give them a reason to break from that loyalty, decide to change, and be prevented from doing so. And no other villain in Power Rangers has this. He doesn't count, his character arc was fucking terrible and they never justified his turn. Okay, Rantic's close, but that still happens mostly off-screen. But despite all of that, you can imply that whatever resistance she may have had against this has taken one single form. For the new Cyber Astronema is not loyal to Dark Spectre. Play that back for me?
Their loyalties will never stray again.
Yeah, you screwed up, dude. As when they made her full-time evil, well, that indifference to the whole ruling the universe thing that was part of her character before, that is now gone.
I am Astronema, the Princess of Darkness. And you? You're an outcast.
As such, allow me to reintroduce 5 very significant characters.
We're faster than you, smarter than you, stronger than you.
Yes, we've now entered the Psycho Ranger arc. Now, as anyone that watched my Mega Ranger videos saw, you guys did watch the remastered Mega Ranger videos, right? The Neji Ranger and Psycho Ranger storylines are pretty much identical. The latter, one of the few direct story adaptations in the season of the former's content. The series' main antagonist creates a set of genuinely evil Rangers using the power of their uber big bad superior, in hopes of draining their power away so they can be more easily taken down.
You want to destroy the Rangers and Dark Spectre?
Absolutely. There's only room for one evil monarch, and that will be me.
Their team is focused solely on the goal of killing their counterparts they think of little else, even in subordination, and they push the team they are fighting to their physical and mental limits. And those who so callously throw the sentai purist slander around to ignore criticisms levied against the show would think I'm about to rip at a new one. On the contrary, I legitimately think In Space did this story arc better. For the most part. And it's ultimately in all the little nuances that diverge from it logically, which increase their dramatic impact in even the first part of it. Though I admit the dramatic impact of the Mega Rangers' failings in their first episode exchanges did hit a lot harder. Again, going back to that destroy does not equal death thing, where Mega Ranger did have that context to what was happening. In adaptation, you can fix logical fallacies and things wrong that the original writers did not think of, and that happens a lot with this arc. With the Neji Rangers, they were using the sounds of the digitizers so as to track them down and find their identities, and then attack them. Whereas the United Alliance of Evil already knows who they are, just not where they are, and are instead doing so to track them down and kill them while they are vulnerable. The Mind Drain is specified it's about battle tactics and ability to have a combat advantage, so it doesn't show them as foolish like the Neji Ranger were framed for not getting the info that played a big damn deal in the arc when they were in their heads and had the chance. Why Silver's not involved is also a good narrative choice. Their attempts to warn Zane they are tracking them via the input sounds of their morphers actually leads to him being captured sans his morpher, and used as a hostage for the Five's actual targets, writing him out so the Sentai plot would work effectively. These are all magnificent changes, and start all off strong, even if they later screw it up and show the Psychos don't know the civilian identities of the team. Missed revision there. Less strong, but not bad, is the second part, Carlos on Call, which once more puts Carlos in place of where Andros' Sentai counterpart would have had a focused episode. This one introduces Sylvie, a brief supporting character that takes the place of Ayumi in the narrative, actually establishing her a bit better, both in setting up her character before things get underway, her mother is a former teacher of Carlos's, also helping to date the series to possibly after they've graduated, and in how she'd discover his secret identity, as there's a better showcasing of how crowded the place was to warrant the photo booth, though it still fails to establish how that photo booth was triggered by them transforming. Likewise, I feel the build-up to Sylvie's revelation she has the evidence is framed better, being more playful about it than how aggressive and careless Ayumi was.
You're kinda slow for a Power Ranger. What? See? From when you went into the photo booth, remember?
Oh, no!
And I just love Carlos's reaction every time I see it. Dance, puppet! Dance! However, there is a failing here. See, Sylvie is coming off as more of a kid that doesn't know the true weight of what they're doing, taking advantage of her opportunity in a benign manner, whereas Ayumi was an outright bratlet from the first time we saw her, being far more self-centered. But the consequence of being kinder in the portrayal is Carlos's reaction isn't from being fed up with days and days of being a little girl's effective slave like it was Kenta. It's being a dick to children after a single event, especially as her second request, a moon rock, is going to be her last request. It fits the character in his history of being an abrasive person, but it's likewise harsher than it should be, even ignoring a bit of the character development Carlos has had, to be potentially even this cruel. But for some reason, Ashley is aware of the brother's part of the plot, and said brother being dead, taking him to a doctor that knows the whole situation, where she appears to be just as stunned by the revelation. Why? She's the one that knew about it. How did she know about it anyways? Wouldn't it have made more sense for Sylvie's mom to be delivering these details than also doing the doctor part of the source plot? It's by the numbers from there. The monster data scammer going after Sylvie for some reason. I guess it thinks she has something over the Black Ranger it hadn't scanned in the earlier battle when he got specs in their equipment. And when the Psychos attack and retreat, Astronema is far harsher in reprimanding them, declaring they'll target the Rangers one at a time, starting with Pink. Rift in the Rangers is just excellent in setting up and playing off the stuff originating from Mega Ranger episode 40, for a lot more realistic reasons as well. Cassie and Ashley end up in an argument about the ship-wide chores and uneven distributions of duties after Ashley unintentionally makes Cassie's work harder. And this is a realistic dispute, far more organic than Tokusatsu misunderstanding conflict number 26957. They're stuck in close quarters with a limited amount of space a lot of the time, and people's personalities are going to grate on each other eventually. Hell, I've had enough roommates to totally get Cassie's angle on anger. That, and they actually emote this episode. The dispute having a lot more to it than something just over a guy that sparked Miku and Chisato's stupid little feud. Dark Spectre is likewise far more aware he's being drained, but since he just reprogrammed the loyalty into Astronema, it's a far better reason why he doesn't suspect her as being the cause of it at all. While some can see that as being naive, well, Dark Spectre has a lot of forces that could be responsible. Javius just had Heinler on assignment, so it should have been really freaking obvious. So Astronema has a lot more justified time before he can narrow down to her being the cause. The Psychos, again, to contrast and complement their Sentai counterparts, are shown having an animosity between them, but are more professional about it, knowing their own individual obsessions can be sated with the assistance of the others, holding their opposite numbers compatriots back, so are more willing to work with the others and not outright backstab each other. At least openly, as one can only diverge so much when one spends most of the rest of the episode running on stock footage. Five of a Kind, many consider, and I can agree, is the highlight of the story arc, in that the Rangers are displaying their intelligence over force. TJ once more showcases his differences from Shun, in that Shun is smart, while TJ is clever. And against forces like this, it's better to be clever, as intuitive realizations seem more organic to such events than a genius having a snap realization they should have caught earlier. Also, the Rangers' chess set is far superior to Checkers. The first battle goes as badly as the Sentai showed, but I end up liking the talk Cassie and TJ have after the battle more, due to their history in Turbo as the ones responsible for getting themselves elected as Power Rangers after entering the series, literally on a bus. Though I question the color on the monitor he's using to review battle footage going out a bit more than Yusaku's big screen TV, simply because they're on a technologically advanced spaceship. I guess it was something not fixed when the ship got wrecked multiple times. Unfortunately, as the show has not at all used the Mega Ranger suit-specific powers of each Ranger in the context that they are suit-specific powers, we'd seen Ashley use Mega Ranger's vision abilities way back in the show, the ability for everyone to just suddenly become a Blue Ranger, though set up, becomes more baffling due to such a disconnect of it not being understandable that it's a power TJ's suit possesses to create holographic projections. And Zane, as Psycho Silver, makes as little sense as when Yusaku did it, but hey, limited by stock footage there. But the episode does end on a high. The team shown as very professional, as with another Psycho down, they prepare their gear, expecting things to get worse before they can end the threat. Leading us to Silence is Golden, which ends up being made great by one single detail.
Oh man, allergies?
Yes, that's the one. Admittedly, that's present in the source episode, but with Miku is instead framed as resulting from an old wives' tale, which evokes a completely different context than is seen here. For as the remaining Psychos head down in human form, hunting the team down by their voices while incognito so they can kill them before they power up, this adds an additional layer of tension to the hunt. Not only does Cassie have to avoid speaking and interacting with people after she is informed by the others when they discover this plot, she has to fight her own involuntary impulses to stay under the radar. Incidentally, as was done in Mega Ranger, the three Psychos' human forms are also portrayed by their voice actors, adding to the menace without having to worry about bad audio dubbing. Though, there is one head-scratching moment. They know what she looks like. Why didn't they grab her? Then again, it does add a level of tension in showing she can walk right by who's after her and not know it at all. Seriously though, the Psychos should know what she looks like. What is wrong with them? The baby in danger is also a bit better handled, taking advantage of the location shoot to put it above a set of stairs. Much more of a threat than a driver who should be paying attention to obstructions going into crosswalks. Though instead of Yusaku claws to get Cassie out when she ends up cornered by the trio, Zane dresses up as one of the most horror-inspiring things imaginable.
Who is this clown?
We don't have time for his foolishness.
What, you guys don't want to be helped by Clownzilla? He eats people for a living, you know. Of course, the confrontation from the Sentai plays itself out, leading to the Voyager machines being stolen in a rather poor out-of-character moment for Andros so he can match up with Kenta. What the hell? The enemy within thus plays out much the same, with the transporter malfunction splitting William Shatner into his ego and id, while the Master's remains hijack the TARDIS to try and find a new body to take over, and Angus MacGyver works to remove a parasitic alien from the body of his friend Conal Kowalski and make sure the government is going to experiment as his new ally Tito. Yeah, that's the danger of that episode title. Literally everyone has used it! With Dark Spectre considerably weakened, Astronema moves things in for her endgame, depositing the mechs on another planet, when they could have just done it back on Earth to speed things up as, they have to search for the signal that slows things down. But things get underway, and completely removes the I am a real boy subplot from this whole mess, which actually does improve it for me. As I said, the Neji Rangers having that snap realization at their end seemed really out of place with the rest of the narrative, and it has no place here. So excluding that is a good thing, as it maintains the consistency of the Psychos, one of the things that makes them great antagonists. Still, it turns out to be just a great episode all around. The only needed rewrites diverging from the source material are done to fit into Space's overall story arc and themes, such as Alpha piloting the Megazord for the Rangers once again, and framing the Rangers' stand against the united power of the Psychos as absorbing the power before turning it back on them. Something that was not clear in the Sentai version of this conflict. But as Dark Spectre discovers the Psychos upon their destruction, still alive as they didn't have enough time to drain him dry, another change to the show's credits is that Astronema covers her ass by saying she orchestrated their defeat. Which she kind of did, since she didn't have a plan B to them failing like, planting tracking devices or explosives in the Voyager machines?
Whose side are you on?
I'm on my side. And if you're smart, you'll keep your mouth shut.
But with the Psycho arc done, we more move into the season Endgame. And by that I mean a filler episode based off of Mega Ranger episode 23 and the Tale of Komutan, where after Andros rescues a small alien from its enslaver, it sneaks on board the ship, somehow, it's never made clear, where they decide to keep it.
Seymour. That's a perfect name.
I waited for you, Andros. I waited for you. Sure enough, Seymour's enslaver comes after it, leading into another Sentai story adaptation, just with a bit shallower emotion to it. It's not bad, but it's not important. It's more or less a breather episode before the next story arc hits. And that is Mission to Secret City. As Sylvia hangs out with the team on a day off, she, Carlos, and Andros are attacked by Vaxacker, teleporting them into the so-titled Secret City, only for Bulk, Spike, and Phenomenus to try and confront the monster.
Don't make me use this!
I hate to tell you this, but that's not an alien blaster! It's my new toaster!
This would have been built a bit better had it been a little later in the episode, but nonetheless, these guys, who've been the butt monkeys of nearly 6 years of media, to go up and stand up against a prime monster of the week, it's awesome and great foreshadowing. The victims are rounded up, early on establishing the place locks out their ability to morph, making them need to hide in plain sight for the time being, as only the Battleizer, which, like Mega Ranger, Andros retrieved alongside the Delta Mega, is usable. The rest of the team find they can't get warped like everyone else while morphed, deciding to go in using guerrilla tactics that honestly show them as a lot more professional and forward-thinking than their Sentai counterparts in the situation, who, in turn, just rushed in a reckless manner. Granted, they've been doing this kind of thing all year, so I'm glad they did come across as competent and experienced throughout, especially since this episode is so heavily reliant on original footage, despite being based on parts of the Heinler City arc. However, this is where the buttons of the Battleizer and their uses are discussed, revealing to the audience that he's never tried the third setting, not even in training where it would be best to be forewarned about it. But when they get into trouble, and as Sylvia's learned it can save them... Yeah, I am not a fan of the Battleizers these days. Though I will admit there are some good ones, and in the original 17 years they were ultimately harmless. It took until Samurai and their absolutely god-awful execution of Battleizer-like armors for their Megazord fights, essentially pointlessly cutting out stock footage for no other reason than so they could include these really expensive and wasteful sequences, to finally make me realize how horrendous these special armors were to the themes and dynamics of the show, which commonly work to alienate the feeling that the team is important and special by only giving one to a single ranger, or on two occasions only other guys. Sentai usually sidesteps this entirely, either giving the power-up to the entire team, or making it transferable to any of them, aside from 6 instances to date, and of those 6, 5 of them are legitimized within the show's narrative itself. The last one is not. Incidentally, that is how an entry in a series ruins something for you, by making you question why whatever it was is even good in the first place, and ending up finding it wanting. Samurai in every series done it didn't ruin Shinkenger or the respective Sentai equivalent for me. It ruined my appreciation of Battleizer, Mega Battle, or pretty much any original armors seen in Power Rangers adaptations. It doesn't help with how badly a great number of them are designed. More toyetic than anything.
Toyetic is a word created by marketing people. It means an object or device featured in a cartoon that could easily become a mass-produced toy.
And because the show is on a strict budget, they tend to be quite wasteful with respect to funding, as every battle involving the things needs to be done by them when the show is heavily reliant on stock footage to keep expenses low, and often go about only reshooting essential scenes to not be wasteful, meaning they are never integrated appropriately into the arsenal, and end up not used when they should be, or so easily overwhelmed after their introduction it makes you question what the point of them even was. That is not good storytelling any way you slice it. And quite frankly, if one wants to watch a single character intentionally dominate the show over the rest of the cast, they go watch Kamen Rider. In fact, I do. Why Kamen Rider's final forms and similar upgrades in other Toku series work likewise is tied to how they're integrated into the show, and whether they come off as completely superfluous to the stories being told. Thus why those, as many as they can shove into a series, have never been considered bad. But Battleizers tend to be the black sheep of them, because they single out a single member, and yet lack significance to the greater story. But yes, they blow the system that's keeping the place shielded and unable to morph, Megazord Brawl, and the city whisks itself away into the cornfields. Ghost in the Machine opens with the team continuing to fail in stopping more abductions, as Astronema reenacts Heinler's plan to digitize their victims into data cards and then reprogram the lot into minions and monsters. And I have to really credit the set designers for so closely recreating the sets here. Hell, even the green screening they did for their series' original victims, such as Bulk, Skull, Phenomenus, and Sylvie. Of course, the Rangers find the place and invade, likewise lured into their fractal codes being digitized, and the Psycho Rangers using the device to recreate their bodies. Yeah, the Psychos had been shown haunting the Rangers about an episode before, though because there is no Jovious heart in this equation, it becomes head-scratching how the machine manages to restore them. Honestly, the episode is really fast-paced, probably as it's homogenizing the story of 2 Mega Ranger episodes, cutting out the flack to keep the pacing and momentum consistent. Zane, of course, rescues the abducted, and the lot trap the Psychos in the cards. But before the place goes up, Astronema manages to retrieve them so they can be wisely reserved as a hanging plot thread for the following season's team-up. I'm not sure if they knew at this point there would be a next season, but you get what you can take. The impenetrable web has some odd elements to it. Once more, the team receives a request for assistance from Nasada.
Crash landed on the planet of Forza.
No, they couldn't.
Course to Forza locked in.
No. Despite me liking that show, I'm only doing one series about teenagers in space directed by Koichi Sakamoto at a time. Call back in a few years. The call is, of course, a trap. The Rangers heading down, only for the ship to be trapped in the eponymous web. Here's where things get nonsensical, however. Because the ship is caged like that, they lose their powers? The hell? Yes, this was a thing in Mega Ranger, as their digitizers worked as a transceiver that would transport the suits onto their bodies. But even there, it wasn't connected to the ship in specific. It doesn't make sense for this series for there to be a constant signal from the ship to require them to stay morphed, since they have regularly had away missions that take them a very far distance from it, nor has it ever been established before that their powers are not self-contained or directly connected to the morphing grid like the previous power sets. Mission to Secret City doesn't count, as it was established there was a jamming field the Battleizer's extreme power just overwhelmed. But admittedly, there is 2 reasons for doing this. One is awesome, the other is stupid. Let's cover the stupid one first, shall we? When the Rangers come under attack by Darkonda and the Quantrons while powerless, Zane comes out of literally nowhere in a new vehicle that's, once more, just advertisement for the toys. To the production team's credit, they most likely saved this completely superfluous edition and recycled in Lightspeed Rescue to get more than 2 freaking uses out of such a significant purchase. But it still makes even less sense than the Battleizer armor to be an Arsenal edition. But the part that is really good is Alpha and Dekka having to deal with Ecliptor as he boards the ship, having to outwit him and try and find a way to get the ship free. And I can't help but think, before the cyberization reprogramming, he wouldn't have been so susceptible to Home Alone tactics pulled by a fellow mechanoid. I still find it good, simply because Alpha and Dekka, despite being constantly present supporting characters, have never gotten a story focused on them. At least not this Alpha, anyways. And that's probably why I have a soft spot for this one. Anyways, Ecliptor managed to get the details on the location of the Mega Voyager, and this is that plot hole I mentioned earlier. See, he and Astronema already know where the mechs were stored. They were there when the Rangers claimed them. They could have changed their location, sure, but it's still an issue with this narrative. Anyway, he has to destroy it, as the others finally utilize the Battleizer to get to the ship and break the web. So much for it being impenetrable. With the Zord base damaged, the Mega Voyager is off limits to taking care of the overcharged Ecliptor, the Delta Megazord a resulting casualty before he weakens enough for them to force him into retreat. A Line in the Sand, the penultimate episode before the finale, starts with Ashley and Andros out on a date. At night. And night sets are just so rare in this genre, it's refreshing to see them. Anyways, they're almost run down by a black Humvee, which refuses to chase them, at least until it hits 88 miles an hour and returns to Doc Brown's lab. I can make that joke as I actually reviewed Back to the Future movies in the past. This truck, I personally believe was recycled for use in Lightspeed Rescue as well, like the buggy. As unlike that edition, this plays a central role in this story, and would be far different if this was not the vehicle used. As every time it assails a Ranger in this episode, it is made blatantly clear it was attempting to commit vehicular manslaughter. This is what makes this episode not only one of the best of in space, but easily in the top 100 for this franchise, simply for the inherent realism and relatability of such an event. It's not firing lasers, it's not trying to capture them within itself, it's trying to make them nothing but a smear on the road. Serious talk for a moment? I have been hit by cars as a pedestrian on multiple occasions. Had more than one bike totally wrecked by idiot drivers not leaving proper clearance for such, when local ordinances force bikers off of the far safer and less likely to put someone in an ICU sidewalks by legally mandating bikers put themselves into traffic and harm's way without sufficient lane clearance to avoid being hit by cars. I was always lucky enough to make it out of such with nothing more than bruises and potentially a minor laceration, but as I mentioned back when I reviewed Kuga originally, one of my friends wasn't as lucky. He was the victim of a hit and run mere months before this episode aired, and I was present for the event. So even back then, I took this really seriously the second I understood the context, which is the second Tankenstein, the monster Humvee, made his first attempt. Thus, it really kept me invested in the episode throughout its runtime. And one by one, the Rangers all fall prey to such, even the Battleizer proving to, upon its third use, be shown to be completely ineffective. Except, instead of killing them by making them smears on the road, they're transported to the desert again so the monster truck can mow them down all at once, only to be saved by Zane and his stupid buggy. It's succeeding where the Battleizer failed. It reforms into its actual monster form, the Grand Nagiros from Mega Ranger. Meaning, yes, this is the end of their available stock footage, as the Mega Voyager is destroyed. They have to write their own ending. This wasn't exactly a new thing. Power Rangers never ended their seasons in the same manner as the Sentai, even if it did rely on their plot points. Before this, they'd either just set up the next season or end with a non-ending, as they just pick up from there. But this was the first real finale for Power Rangers. And as I said, it was supposed to be the big finale, the one to end all of Power Rangers. So nothing needed to be spared. It needed to wrap up everything they had. The Alliance's plans, the fate of other active Rangers, return of old enemies, the siege of every planet in known space. Everything needed to be perfect to have a satisfying and complete finale. From the acting, to the writing, to the effects, to the music. And they needed to have someone directing that would be able to get the best out of every... Oh, that is never a good sign! As I've said, there are 6 poorly directed episodes in this season that hurt the stories they're trying to present from these heights they could have reached by how they're written, and these are the last 2. They were all directed by Jonathan Zacher. I've already said why in the previous ones I think that is, but in addition to poor staging, acting, and pacing, the finale has various errors all over the place that doesn't make it hold up. And this was originally going to be the series finale. The moment you want to shout for your audience, "We will not go calmly into the night!" And if it were not for the underlying epic strength of the script, it wouldn't have gone out with a bang, but a whimper. Or maybe they'd been told the show had been renewed by this point and just cared less. And before people ask, I was panning these episodes even without knowledge of the man I consider the Rob Liefeld of Power Rangers being involved. So my dislike of the guy was not coloring my perception of them, as I've never particularly cared for any of them even casually, even back when I was 9. If they really wanted the best of everyone on the staff on deck to hit this off right, either Worth Keeter or Koichi Sakamoto should have been directing. They were the ones getting the best performances out of the cast all season, and Sakamoto especially has gone on to be known as a notoriously popular and effective director. Which is sad as, story-wise, this is a really damn good 2-parter. Anyways, Dark Spectre's master stratagem gets underway with the various forces engaging in their final siege. The Machine Empire taking on the Turbo Extra Rangers, Divatox assaulting the Equations, the return of Zed and Rita with them defeating the Gold Ranger, oh irony there, and Zordon's place in the Dark Fortress so we can witness the fall of the universe to evil... Well, Astronema, despite supposedly being emotionless right now due to the cybernetic implants, returns to being the overacting, self-dramatizing villain that was the weakest part of her characterization. Zane meets up with the others as the resistance is assailed, unable to pull away as the Earth is hit with a massive swarm of Velocifighters. The megaship engaging them... And that is not where lasers on the ship are situated. They make planetfall to try and fight off the numbers, but no force in the show has brought forth this many foot soldiers down at any single time. Not even Divatox when she used the same tactic last season. And it was already established the Quantrons are not only more effective foot soldiers throughout the season, but the Rangers aren't able to successfully counter these kinds of numbers. Which has been a consistent, recurring thing. Their normal weapons fail, the Battleizer fails, again. Even the Mega Winger is unable to take down so many bogeys as it too falls. But as all that's happening, Astronema is preparing the final attack. A massive bomb powerful enough to destroy Earth. While extreme, this is the planet that has offered the single most resistance to their plans. So it might just not be worth holding. Or possibly she somehow looked into the future and foresaw this.
Ranger.
Yeah, if my visage was reduced to nothing more than god-awful CGI, even if I had my emotions suppressed by technology, I'd probably be pretty pissed too. Darkonda sees this plot end, revealing he has only 1 life left, despite the show only killing him 6 times and none having occurred before that. Well, he decides it's time for him to backstab and make for taking over. Wouldn't it make more sense to lay low if you were on your last life so it doesn't backfire on you in a fit of irony? So, as Astronema briefs her master on her plan, Dark Spectre is hit from behind by the missile.
Dark Spectre destroyed? How could this happen?
You tell me! You were just talking to him when he was hit by the missile! And you were responsible for weakening him enough so this could work! Were you not even paying attention to the episodes you were in? And it's said in a tone that implies bafflement, not, how come I wasn't the one to finally kill him? That it should be coming off as. I do hope you are all getting what I mean about the screw-ups in direction. Darkonda dies in a fit of irony, before Dark Spectre finally explodes. Well, guess they need to elect a new leader. That level of infighting between the forces that are now about equivalent in power should surely allow the Rangers an opportunity to...
Princess of Evil is now your supreme leader. It is for her that we fight, and for her, we will conquer the universe.
Oh, right. Forgot. Astronema's the most proficient leader of the lot. And that is the difference between a petty villain and a competent one. Zordon tries to pull her free.
Search your heart.
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
But it fails. She instead brings the Dark Fortress down onto the city, declaring to all of those who are in hearing range of her, and considering her elevation and the lack of any amplification equipment, I would say no one. Anyways, she demands the Rangers be brought before her, or she'll just kill everyone.
It's them or you.
This naturally segues into a discussion that, while it's implied has gone on for hours, with how it's framed, it's like there were only a few people that bothered to even talk about it even briefly. But it is paced far too fast. One person's declaration of the Rangers abandoning them has no time to settle, no time to really impact or be considered before Bulk tears it down.
Wait a minute! Listen, everyone. The Rangers have never let us down before. We have to believe they'll be here.
Now, I really love this moment. I do, but it's not as strong as it could have been. Think about it. A few people muttering their agreement as the thought is allowed to fester before he declares it wrong. Make it so it's actually inspiring people to bury their fears and rally their hope and courage to endure and resist because their heroes are not gone. As it is, it's like he's going, "Objection!" to a piece of witness testimony. Even a few seconds would have made the difference here. You could have easily cut down on the "it's them or you" scene for it. Or hell, the episode opens on a previously on segment that could have been cut entirely so they would have more time in the episode to properly pace it out. It's the second half of the season finale! I think people watching it would know what had happened immediately preceding it. Now, to be fair, Countdown to Destruction was originally intended to be a 3-part finale, not 2. However, the budget fell short of being able to do that, so stuff was shortened and cut. Apparently not enough, as there's somehow still padding in this 2-part episode where so many other things are happening and going on. But for all I know, this was meant to have the bigger impact, the better showing. But if they were to cut an episode in order to have that 3rd part, instead of the one with Seymour, it's likely they would have cut either a line in the sand or the impenetrable web. And despite their inclusion of completely superfluous to the narrative toy advertisements, I feel doing that for either of them would have been a mistake. The Rangers gather elsewhere in the ruins, considering their options as every ally is now subjugated or gone. This really is their darkest hour, as all of their options are bad ones. Give themselves up? It would condemn everyone to evil's rule. Rally the civilians, or just run to be able to fight later? They forsake their duties as Power Rangers, the duty to protect people. Andros tries to sneak away, only for Ashley to catch him doing so, as he has to try and save his sister, as it just might be the key to stopping this.
If I don't see you again...
I will see you again.
If only they would put a bit more emotion into it. The next morning dawns, and the ultimatum is given. But it's all to set up the season, and Bulk and Skull's crowning moment of awesome.
I am the Blue Ranger. I'm the Black Ranger.
I'm a ranger too!
Me too! I'm a ranger! Yeah, I'm a ranger!
As Astronema orders them to die, the others step up to reveal themselves.
Them?
Total surprise!
But what these two sparked the night before and kindled just now has ignited into the flames of all-out rebellion. And this is the single scene that makes me consider Power Rangers in Space better than Denji Sentai Mega Ranger. For what Mega Ranger alienated their heroes in a similar situation as a test of character for them, in space, used it as a test of character for the people the Power Rangers have long protected. And they passed. For this is when the civilians stopped being bystanders, stopped cowering away from danger, stopped letting this happen to them, and solving it be someone else's problem. This is when the people of Earth stood up, and after 6 years of being attacked by aliens, monsters, and eldritch abominations, decided to fight back. Evil wins when good people do nothing, and this is the moment the common man charged into battle. The assault led by two bumbling best friends that began the show as nothing more than the dregs of humanity, and have evolved into noble heroes. Now, I originally released these reviews not long after Megaforce's god-awful legendary battle had aired, and was getting compared to Countdown to Destruction as the blatant rip-off version of it. And really, there is no comparison beyond the Korean knockoff of a Sentai series did better than that trash. As the show had been building to this all year, hell, multiple years organically, Legendary Battle lacks the weight behind it, the elements of a dynamic conflict because it's just mopping up with little more than fan service, which makes the Megaforce team appear even more pathetic than they had already been shown to be after slamming the easy and reset buttons for 2 years and not having appeared to ever earn their victory. So there was never a sense of struggle, a sense of desperation, never a buildup of expectations or any level of investment in the possibility that they might lose, which has been a constant element here. This entire season has been an uphill battle the Rangers have fought and fought and fought to earn. This was their ultimate challenge, and the reward they have received is the people they protected now fighting alongside them and having their backs. This is the final battle of the Zordon era, showing this world has grown beyond the necessity of the Power Rangers. Andros finally makes it onto the Dark Fortress with a toy Astro Blaster in hand. I don't know why, as in the next part of the scene he has the prop one. And yeah, he finds Zordon, who does have a solution to all of this.
Shatter my energy tube.
For as a scion of light, his power can counteract the darkness of evil, or some other such crap. To be fair, they'd been building up to his rescue all season, so it had to be for some critical reason, making it a good use of Deus Ex Machina. In fact, you know what it does seem like? The ending of Mass Effect 3 done right! But still, Power Rangers grows, and in this case, it grows beyond the mentor that had defined the show up until now, with the innocence-shattering act of a Power Ranger being forced to commit murder to save the universe. Wow, talk about going straight for the moral gray area. Still makes him a far better and competent hero than Shinji Kito. His hesitance allows Astronema to enter and, while trying to talk sense into her, and come to think of it, this would have been a lot more dramatic if he was helmetless. But one of the blasts he deflects rebounds right into her, dealing a mortal blow.
What have you done to her? Your own sister?
It was an accident.
Emote! Why is it so hard for you to emote? You should be sobbing your eyes out. You just killed your sister! Ecliptor should be livid! But as it is in the episode, it's just so flat and emotionless. As they battle, Zordon pleads again for him to take his life and save everyone.
It is your duty as a Power Ranger to save the universe. Now is the time.
Kill me!
And he does so, choosing the red option, with the wave of energy obliterating every evil creation, every enemy foot soldier that is currently active, and turning the humanoid enemies into normal people. This last reason being why the otherwise noble Ecliptor was atomized. The dude was ultimately a robot, and one could argue the true Ecliptor died back during the earlier ambush, or even upon seeing Astronema's death. The wave destabilizes the morphing grid, dropping the power of the Rangers, who are surrounded by the greater populace and showered in love and joy, cementing my preference for this over Mega Ranger.
Any word from Andros?
It's not even been 2 minutes. Give him some time! The Dark Fortress descends, Andros carrying Astronema's corpse, and because her death wasn't given much impact, there's relatedly less investment given to the following sorrow, and by proxy joy, as there was enough life left within her to spark removal of the gear from her body and return her to health. a life, and many more for a life. So it's finally wrap-up time. Andros, Zane, and Corone decide to stay on KO-35, which is quickly being repopulated, seeing off the others as they take the megaship to return to Earth. There's a nicely appropriate lingering of everyone, showing the sadness everyone feels from parting like this, Ashley fittingly the most dejected. But as they get underway...
Deca, set a course for Earth.
Andros!
My home is with you guys.
This is the final tale of Zordon's Power Rangers. Their history and legacy, soon after, would become the care of another team. To them and their posterity, and those that would come after them, is committed to the future. They will continue on, saving, protecting, defeating all who would dare spread evil's cruel whims. May the power protect us all. Unless, someone screws over the moral/ethical/thematic representations of the show, and their legacy in a vanity project, but what are the odds of that happening? From a scale of a low 1 to a high 10 in relation only to other Power Rangers seasons, Power Rangers in Space is 10 out of 10. 20 years now from its initial airing, and it still holds up as one of the best seasons in the franchise. Though not my favorite, which is Time Force. The issues I take with it, and who I call out for it, mainly born out of how I've grown as a person and expanded my views and experiences since first viewing it, and understanding more of how the world works. But despite my critiques, and how much of a zombie property Power Rangers has become in the 2010s, it's the show that more allowed its next entries to develop into allowing more adult themes and stories to come into play to give it the wide demographic the show obtained, as Sentai had been doing since its inception, albeit with a lighter hand that should not always be seen as a detraction, as it never lost the optimism needed in hero works to retain their lasting appeal. In Space knew what it wanted to be, what tones of maturity it needed to carry such out, and, for better or worse, did so according to the talents of those on the show. Characterization was consistent, and though not everyone got the best of focus, or significant development, they came off as who they had always been, or were introduced to be. Most of the really poor moments were what was hanging on from preceding years, or failures in direction that didn't bring out the capabilities they had shown elsewhere. The stories, besides 7, are well executed, telling the stories they wanted to while remaining serialized and important to progression, and only one of those 7 I called out is actually bad. Though there are certainly a lot of groan-worthy and head-scratching moments throughout that I have mentioned which can detract from it, especially for a viewer more used to modern, flashy, gimmicky tokusatsu that seems to care less about consistency of story or characterization. Its existence as a space opera continues to give it a unique flavor amongst all other Power Rangers seasons, aside from Lost Galaxy, which ultimately did its own thing. Its villain is fantastically developed, better than I see Heinler's as. For all it wasn't always touched on in an episode directly, thematically it was consistently carrying on and evolving. The themes in play being what does it mean to be evil, continuing to try in the face of adversity, growing up, as well as finality, as it sought to wrap up as much as it could. While not everything was dealt with the way they had planned, following up on past Rangers who accent their own stories the way they did was perfect to supply closure. The one that continues to fight, the one that re-enters the war, and the one that has stepped aside and chosen to mentor his successors. The music, I honestly miss when they did more synth stuff like this. While there's charm to the rock scoring of the earlier years, and some of the stuff used in Disney, music that has a classic stylization to it has a unique staying power that can more properly accent emotion and intrigue for background scoring than blasting everything with rock tunes. And the rock music in the early side just didn't fit as well. The effects, yeah, they're dated, but the fact that so many were practical ones, especially the shipborne stuff, helps make them not detract against the show as some of the later CGI integration would. The Sentai content they made use of was effectively executed, with few significant issues concerning adaptation, and while its many divergences and strikingly original story make it effectively incomparable from a practical standpoint to Mega Ranger, with regards to putting it in a better or worse argument, I do feel In Space ultimately is the more enjoyable of the two, mainly due to the serialization, as one of Mega Ranger's biggest issues was the lack of definitive progression in the story arc that it had, which was not a problem here. And it is, ultimately, proof that Power Rangers can hold its own as a quality show when it tries. It doesn't need to be bland, or grim, or only appealing to the fans of a specific period or tiny demographic, but be one that can be enjoyable to anyone and everyone. As when you try, this is what results. This is what saved the show from cancellation and being lost to the annals of history. And this is the kind of content that has built such a long-lasting and beloved fan base. One that should be open to anyone. And while many seasons strive for this, we really need the franchise to move back to what made this entry so beloved. 'Cause Sanity knows we haven't seen that since RPM. And I just don't see it lasting much longer without even attempting things like it did here. But hey, that's a discussion for another day. In the meantime, Denji Sentai Mega Ranger and Power Rangers in Space are available from Shout Factory. They're both fantastic seasons, and check them out yourselves when you get the chance.